Welcome everyone. While looking for this week's video subject, I happened upon a few videos that are too unbelievable to not believe. In the first video, Watchful Warrior seems to have found out the secret to why the mud flood happened and who caused it. And you will not believe it. I know I didn't, but it's right there in black and white. This video consisted of black marker writing on white paper. There was no commentary nor any music, just a hand flipping pages when needed. I have filled the no commentary slot with my own reading of it for you. Oh, and I took screenshots from the video as it was easier than trying to work with the page turning and the hand getting in the way. A new mud flood theory. It connects Tartaria, the melted buildings, and the mud flood. Many think, and there is evidence, that Tartaria used free energy. It was electrical. Something happened, and there are melted and partially melted buildings everywhere. We cannot fathom how hot it was, and only speculate what caused it. There are buildings that are partially buried by mud dirt, and we all guess at who caused this. I have a new theory on who caused the mud flood. If the buildings were so hot they were melting, water would be no good. It turns to steam at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. A layer of wet mud several feet deep would prevent oxygen from sustaining the fire, as O2 is needed to complete combustion. It would also insulate from the great heat that was happening. There are many boiling pits and areas today that are getting heat from a natural source. Most coastal towns have mudflood buildings, while closer to the Rocky Mountains there are few and massive melted buildings. Most mudflood buildings are well preserved above ground, but below ground there are some that show heat melting when construction digging is done. So it is possible the reason we cannot find out who caused the mud flood is because we are looking at the mud flood as destructive and catastrophic, when it was actually defensive and necessary by the Tartarians themselves to save what was left after the Tartarian grid was shorted out and left to burn. The mud or dirt would have acted like firefighting foam as a blanket and insulator, and it saved many buildings. The closer to the oceans, the better. Note, Chicago is on the shores of Lake Michigan, World's Fair 1893. So it is possible the mud flood was a Tartarian defense to save their own empire when it was shorted out. It would explain many things. Watchful Warrior, May 4th, 2021. So, no explanation on how the Tartarians delivered the mud to these various high heat, shorted out electrical fires, nor how they applied it onto the high heat, shorted out electrical fires. And what does the World's Fair of 1893 have to do with Chicago being on Lake Michigan? Anyway, this next video is from Divergent and talks about the mud flood and what we don't know about it.
So, we all know stuff about the mud flood and the world reset and forbidden history and all that stuff.
By stuff, you mean from those who think that the mud flood and the world reset really happened, with no evidence other than basements with windows and the Mandela effect?
Archaeologists and official scientists, they're usually looking for Chinese pants and Egyptian rocks and leather shoes and other nonsense to just prove nonsense.
Nonsense? Huh. Okay. I am sure you will explain why that is all nonsense.
Why don't archaeologists speak about, for example, what you can find in Turkey, in what we call today Turkey, the country of Turkey, in a city called Sardis? And where do you place this Sardis, historically speaking? Because when you see the pictures and you see the official history says that Sardis was founded somewhere around 1200 BC, and the city was abandoned in 1402 Anno Domini, so our time. And it says that because of some Turkish Mongol invasion in the 15th century, everybody left the city and that's it.
Okay, that happened to a lot of ancient cities. They were occupied and then deserted for whatever reason.
The question is, you see these huge, tremendous pillars. They weigh tons. I'm gonna tell you some stuff right now, but we see everything covered by dirt, right? Feet or meters of dirt, lots of feet and lots of meters of dirt. So did that dirt or like earth fall from the sky, arrive by land? Did it just like appeared out of nowhere, out of ether? Because like, you know, in order to have that much dirt covering these huge pillars, lots of years should and when I say lots of years, I say millions of years, naturally speaking, from a natural perspective. So we all know that wasn't natural. So somebody buried those artifacts and those places.
Yes, someone, or shall I say someones, buried it over and over and over again. According to alumni.berkeley.edu, over the centuries, the remains of Sardis were covered over and over as waves of succeeding generations of invaders, first the Greeks, then the Romans, and finally the Byzantines, built their own cities on top of its ruins.
According to modern estimates, based on the historical accounts of the archaeological site, each of these columns you see in the pictures, they consist of a single piece of marble, over 60 feet long and weighing close to 100 tons. You tell me, who has the power and technology and resources to do that, what time and when? So forbidden history. It's forbidden to know the real aspects of our history. Not our history, because actually we are just so young as a human species, pretty much 200 years, but that's too much for people to accept, as usual.
So we as a human species are too young to know this forbidden history? You speak of this 200 years of what that we can't accept? Is that history or us as a human species? I am confused.
So, before 1910, there's also a picture before 1910, because the archaeological site, when they explored and they dug everything out, was after 910. So 1910 as the year in the 20th century, right? So, yeah. And this is to be like, for example, there's a map which is from the 1700s, 1705, that shows the ruins of Troy, Philadelphia, and Sardis, marked and noted in the 18th century. So they knew that that place was actually full of ruins.
Yes, because of those who had previously conquered and built upon it, either through word of mouth or through documentation that people in various countries and civilizations kept of their histories before the 1800s.
The question is, if they knew that in 1705 and in 1910 we have, so 2 centuries afterwards, we have everything covered by dirt, it means that at some point between 1700 and 1900 that place was covered by dirt.
Not sure where you are getting the 1705 date from, but according to UNESCO.org, archaeological research in the area dates back to the expedition of Robert Wood in 1750. Why would the area be covered by dirt only to be excavated decades later? And if there was this great mud flood, world reset, and forbidden history, why do only conspiracy websites and conspiracy channels on YouTube seem to know about it?
Awesome stuff. Forbidden history as usual. I'll see you guys in the next video with more interesting stuff like this. Take care.
What do the mud flood and pareidolia have in common? ZZ George Z. Dane will tell us.
Hi guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm back on the mound made out of megalithic boulders, and we're looking at what I said might be a snake effigy. The internet's a wonderful place to meet people from all different walks of life and different points of view, and someone said in their mind this was a creature from before a mud flood.
But what about the world reset after the mud flood and all that forbidden history? How would your friend know what this is other than a rock that looks like a snake head, or to me, a tortoise head?
And I said I'd come back, take some more video, pay some more attention to it. So he thought it was a creature of some sort with protuberances on its head. And it is a strange rock. There we are. And underneath is a cave.
Is it a cave, or could it have been caused by any number of things, including a landslide due to a sinkhole?
That goes way, way in. I can see in there, I'm saying 30 feet, and then it turns to the right. It's a very narrow passage. Looks to me like it opens up. I think I could squeeze in there, but could I get out? So it's going to be left unexplored for right now. But there's our snake effigy or petrified creature. You be the judge.
Or a rock that your mind thinks looks like a snakehead.
I do read the comments. I try to read all the comments and respond as much as I can. So in front of him, got this rock here. That's very round. I don't know if that was carved or drilled. And we've had a lot of melting, but that goes down into ice. That's solid ice. But what is that? Is that some sort of artifact?
It could be a rock from a landslide that was weathered away by wind or water.
Alright guys, that's it for now. Just a short video to keep a promise. May the Lord bless you, keep you, watch over you, keep you safe. Till we meet again. Amen.
I definitely think those rocks were part of a long ago landslide, and this guy is either trolling us or is really indoctrinated by conspiracies. This last video is from Altered Reality 2012, and she explores why San Francisco is built on hills.
Hi guys, today I'm going to do a video on San Francisco and its famous hills. After coming across a picture of San Francisco at work the other day, it got me thinking that maybe San Francisco's hills aren't natural at all, but that San Francisco is actually mud flooded.
Yes, you heard her right. San Francisco's hills are not natural, but due to the mud flood.
I mean, if you look at this picture right here, this street is like almost vertical. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if I was the founder of San Francisco and I saw hills like this, would I say, hey, let's build some buildings here? Or would I say, screw it, let's go find somewhere else where the land is much more flat?
Looking at this topobathymetric elevation map of the San Francisco Bay Area, you can see that San Francisco sits on hills at the end of a mountainous peninsula created by various tectonic plates pushing under other tectonic plates. However, why not build on the hills? It's far easier than taking the hills down, which would take a lot of manpower and a few decades at the very least.
So this is the picture I found, and as you can see, clear signs of mud flooding, as you can see, with the level of the street covering up half where this is the door. This should have been street level, but street level is coming all the way up to here now when it really should be down here somewhere.
So this picture shows a mud flood? No. That is a hill, and the buildings are built to fit its incline. That is why they look like that.
And if you look at this old photo, same situation. You see the building is pretty much cut off as usual. Like, I really just don't think that this building was built on this incline like this. I really feel that once upon a time this was a normal building with its street level down here. Mud flood came along and they just kind of had to dig this out and do the best they could with it. Again, if you just look at any street, basically, you'll see that the buildings are cut off by the street. And again, I just don't believe that people would build like this. As you can see, there's something else that should have been down here. Even this little brick area right here, you can see that it's totally cut off, and it looks like this door is recessed beneath the ground. Over here, again, this door, you can see it cut off. Straight at an angle, as usual, same situation. All these buildings at such a ridiculously steep incline. It's just like, who would say, hey, we're going to build our buildings like this? I mean, I'm not even sure of the architecture that would be involved, like as far as construction, to have to cut a building off and level it so that it would fit on such an incline.
So buildings can't be built into hills and they are cut off instead? Hold on, I need to hear more to see if I'm getting this right.
As usual, you can see this looks like it was indeed cut off. It does not look like this is a natural formation. It looks like the street level was way lower at one point. Like, I just don't believe, again, that they built this building like this. And in this picture, you can see these stairs, which look like they've been cut off by the land. I mean, that definitely is like half of a step right there. Like, who would construct their building with a half a step? This has definitely been covered by mud, and they just had to, again, use concrete and do the best they can. And if you kind of look at this area right here, to me, it looks like this building should go way further down underground here. Like, even this is probably not the original door level, in my opinion. Again, more weird cut off areas in the building, and house after house after house, same thing. Like, I don't think this was made this way. And if you look at this old photograph here, it kind of looks like these houses were here at some point and mud or something just kind of, you know, covered everything up and they had to dig it out. Like, that's just my little take on this photo right here. I believe, I guess, judging from the cars, this might be like the 50s or something. So yeah, again, looks like they just kind of like dug these houses out of all this dirt right here.
Because they were built on hills. And newsflash, hills have dirt layers.
And you'll see again, buildings cut off, street level is here, but yet this is all cut off. All these little strange alleys, you know, they kind of had to just do whatever they could to dig out the buildings so they could use them again. And more steep inclines. It's just really fascinating. We always thought that, oh, this was just a real hilly street, hilly landscape, but again, I don't think that's natural. This building, the photograph is taken at a funny angle, but if you can imagine this building being right side up, you can see how half of it is indeed cut off by the street. And this was probably, like, maybe this was the original area where the door should have been, and whatever window, like this is a window here, like these were probably originally windows instead of doors, and they would have just had to dig in and do the best they can to get into the building. Same thing in this situation. Buildings that are just half like cut off. Doesn't look really natural or practical to me if I were the person who was founding this city. Same thing here. Steep inclines, buildings that are cut off. And this is really interesting here. I'm looking at this, what it looks like a roadway that kind of like zigzags and goes up here. I mean, like, who would deliberately create such a convoluted road? If you were the person in charge of this landscape, like, who would do this? Who would do this? If this would have been a normal city with a normal streetscape, would anybody say, hey, we're gonna like build these crazy hills and roads twisting and turning? No, I think it was just covered by mud, and again, they had to do the best they could to create a road or something like that with it.
According to sfgate.com, prior to 1922, the street was straight and paved with cobblestones, but the 27-degree grade was too great for the autos of the day to climb. One of the hill's residents suggested the switchback solution. After some issues with one of the residents being in Europe at the time, the switchback almost didn't happen. I have actually walked down Lombard Street, and its views of the bay are breathtaking. I highly recommend it if you ever get a chance to visit San Francisco. But enough about that. Back to the video.
Again, more buildings, just this was bricked up and cut off. I think this is another one of those photos where it's taken at a wonky angle. But again, if you can imagine this little planted area straight, Again, why would they build it to keep it cut off like this? Doesn't make much sense.
It makes perfect sense. But because you do not understand it, you are going with conspiracy instead of reality.
And again, weird steepness, a lot of these stairs going up by these buildings that just, if you were doing construction, I just don't think that this is the way you would do it.
Who would build stairs up an incline to make it easier for people to walk up that incline? I mean, that's just weird. She just keeps doing more of the same for a few minutes more. She looks at pictures and believes that it is because of a mud flood that never happened. I am going to spare you those few minutes and fast forward to before the last minute of the video.
And last but not least, this is another interesting building. I think this might be the one in the first photograph. As you can see how the bottom half of the building is cut off. And to me, what I find fascinating is that you look at the decoration and design of the window here, and you look at the current door, and it looks like this used to be a window just like this. You can see same decorations, same everything, and when the building was flooded, they had to cut out the bottom part of this window and turn it into a door, because the original door would have been at the same level as this door or even lower, got cut off, so they had to cut out this part of the building and turn this window into a door.
No. Oh my God. It can't be that the house was made like that. No, that makes too much sense.
So that's my little theory on San Francisco. The hills of San Fran are not natural, but the city is actually mud flooded. Tell me what you guys think. See you in the next video.
There is no consensus on when this mysterious mud flood supposedly happened, but some claim it was sometime in the 1800s. And with it came the Great Reset. You know, the world reset where reality was changed so we wouldn't remember any history prior to it, except what they wanted us to know. Interestingly enough, I found on Google some pictures of San Francisco dating back to 1849. Now, if the mud flood happened sometime in the 1800s, it would have taken a long time to dig it up, especially if it were a worldwide mud flood, wouldn't it? And why leave steep hills in San Francisco to build on if that were the case? These photos are evidence of the hills always being there, just like the mountains of the peninsula it sits on the end of. No conspiracy and no alternate reality. Just something somebody made up in their imagination and others picked up on and ran with, just like the flat earth. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.